Ever since my daughter was in middle school, she gave me the nickname Podge. And ever since then, that's what my daughter calls me. That's what all of her friends call me. We were always super close, and I was really worried when she was going off to college that maybe we'd grow apart a little bit more. So I just sort of racked my brain. What could I do to try to stay as connected to her as possible? So I came up with the idea that every Sunday, I would record a 5-minute episode about the kind of topics we might normally talk about, send it to her Monday morning, and then she could watch it on her way to campus. I thought it'd be a good idea to resurrect that. They'll be the kinds of topics that I would talk to my now 25-year-old daughter, or the younger version of myself, or people that I mentor, or maybe you. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Podge. What do the internet, social media, crypto, and AI all have in common? They were humongous disruptors. They reshaped the world and they created some of the most massive opportunities in the last couple centuries. And all of those in the last 25 years. And you need to understand the speed of disruption is accelerating. It's not staying the same or slowing down. Internet took like 15 years to get, real adoption. Social media like 10, crypto 5, and I would argue AI like 2 to 3. If you just think about how long it took for companies to get to $1 trillion market cap, it took Microsoft and Apple 40 to 45 years to get to that market cap. Google and Facebook about 20 years. It only took 10 years for Bitcoin to get $1 trillion market cap, and AI is going to happen way faster than that. Believe it or not, if you bought like $10,000 worth of Bitcoin in 2015, 10 years ago, it'll be worth over $5 million today. You have to understand too, whenever you see these disruptions, you have to be a contrarian because disruption will always be dismissed as a fad in the beginning. And all 4 of those that I mentioned, all were dismissed as a fad in the beginning. The internet was that way, social media. I remember when Twitter was launched, like, who would want to, 140 characters? That doesn't even make any sense. Now, obviously, it's the town square is basically Twitter X. Forget about the fact that you don't want to, people are terrified by change. You need to embrace change. You cannot afford to wait. What are you doing today to embrace the disruption that's occurring now? I would argue right now, the single biggest disruptor is AI, but those aren't the only ones. So when I think, both what's happening today and what's going to be happening here, say in the next 5 years, at the outside, here are the disruptors I think people should be spending time and attention thinking about how they're going to embrace these. 1, building a personal brand as a critical success factor in life. I think people way underestimate how critical that's going to be. Personal robots. Believe it or not, between self-driving cars and personal robots, people born today will never learn to drive. Like when I was growing up, you might go to summer camp and learn how to ride a horse, but the average person doesn't know how to ride a horse. 100 years ago, everyone knew how to ride a horse. So that's how cars are going to be. It's going to be more like a thing you do that's a hobby. People born today will not learn to drive a car. And when most households in 10 years have personal robots, you're never going to be doing a load of laundry. You're not going to be folding and putting clothes away. You're not going to be cleaning dishes. You're not going to be cleaning your house. All those jobs are going to go away and they're going to be replaced either the jobs of, just chores that people doing around the house or paid jobs like a maid or cook, whatever it might be. Imagine you could have, a robot that was as good as any, Michelin, chef. That's all coming. So personal robots, the brain computer interface. So most folks have probably heard about Neuralink. The reality is we're not going to be that far away, maybe 10, 15 years at the most, going back to the movie The Matrix, if you've seen it, where, you could download a program to fly a helicopter or learn, karate or kung fu, whatever it might be. I don't know that we're going to be quite there, but right now the limitation of accumulating knowledge is, the interface between the information and your brain, because the only way you can ingest information now is by hearing things or by reading things. So that's a super, super slow way to ingest information. And I think something like 90% of all of the information ever created, knowledge, has been created in the last like 5 years or something crazy. And that's just going to continue to accelerate. So that computer brain interface is going to be huge. DeFi or decentralized finance, where basically people are, and this is already true sort of on the fringes, where people are going to basically effectively be their own bank. And distributed decentralized finance is going to become huge. Blockchain technology is going to be a piece of that. I would argue power at an almost unlimited scale between, nuclear, both fusion and fission, and some of the new capabilities in battery technology for storage of energy are going to change access to energy, where I think in something like, for sure, in less than 20 years and probably less than 10 years, there will be an unlimited supply of virtually free energy. And obviously, not just in terms of being able to push AI forward, but in all ways, going to be a game changer. Be curious and open to change. Don't push it away. When you see disruption, don't see about, oh man, how is this going to make my life more difficult or harder to find a job or harder to find clients or harder to keep clients, whatever it might be. You got to flip it around. How can I embrace this change? Curiosity is the new IQ, because, before, I think, 50 years ago, your innate raw intelligence was probably one of the most critical success factors. Now it's a lot less about that. I think being open to new information and embracing that change is much more important. Experiment, take some risks, gain some base level knowledge and expertise on a whole bunch of things where you see some disruption occurring. Maybe pay for some, coaching or education or courses on these new areas, and figure out, pay attention to those things and see which ones are going to be the ones you're going to want to be an early adopter to. You don't want to be Blockbuster and Kodak. So if you don't know the story, Blockbuster had an opportunity to acquire Netflix. I want to say it was for something like $50 million or something, really pittance of amount of money. And obviously then Netflix basically put them out of business. Kodak actually invented digital photography, and they shelved it because they didn't want to screw up their film business. And so what ended up happening? Well, they basically lost that entire business. So if you don't embrace the change, it's going to eat your lunch. Network with innovators. When you're out there networking, don't just be networking for the things you're doing now. Find the people that are doing things that are really bleeding edge, and have those people in your network. Touch base with them from time to time. See what's going on. As I said before, don't see disruption as a threat. See it as what it is, a huge opportunity. Pay attention to what's coming next so you can ride the wave. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this episode of Coffee with Podge. See you next week.